But anyway, the point was, obviously, going into this weekend, if people remember, the actual discussion was this. The discussion was, does Fnatic or XL get through? Because if you looked who was most likely, you know, the chances. One thing nobody actually even brought up as a topic was, does Vitality just lose all three and then somehow lose a tiebreak and then not even make it? That wasn't even anywhere. Everyone actually thought Vitality was made it, basically. So
it was one of those scenarios. It was one of those scenarios where it was like the reverse Doctor Strange, where it's like, how many scenarios does Vitality make playoffs? It's like, I can only find one where they don't, right? It's absolutely insane that this team couldn't actually scrape together a win, except for BDS in the last couple of weeks. So they end the season with a 5 game losing streak, technically, because they lost the tiebreaker as well. And what's crazy is that all they had to do was win one of these. One of these last 5 games. Yeah. Any of them, just any of them. They could have beaten Astralis, SK, Fnatic, or Rogue, or XL. And on top of that, if Fnatic beats Misfits, or if Misfits beats Fnatic, they're already in, right? So they had one of 5 games to win, and also they had to hope Fnatic doesn't win. And in all of those scenarios, they couldn't pull 1 game win. And of course, Fnatic takes the win against Misfits at the same time. Absolutely insane that this could happen. And then they even get gifted this match versus XL, a team that has underperformed quite significantly over the last few weeks.
Loads of games themselves, like, yeah, exactly.
The season. And
one of the worst records in the second half of the split.
That hurdle either. Just insanely disappointing from this roster.
But aren't we happy that it happened? Like,
I will say this. Like, I will say, 2 weeks ago, I won all my shows.
I had a lot of money on Vitality.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
The problem is this, like, even though people were talking up when Vitality was good, because obviously they're like Perks and Harry were looking good, things were coming online. To be fair, or if you take the split as a whole, it hasn't been a good split. So, like, actually, the way it ends, the real problem is this, Amazing. It's like, it's not like XL was much better, so I don't think we really gained anything from that. That's the only downside. But I will say, like, it could have obviously been worse for even for Vitality in playoffs. Like, they might just completely shit the bed, who knows?
I mean, but okay, so how much do you actually think that Vitality would have brought in playoffs? You know, as you said, like, probably would have shit the bed, could have shit the bed, but like, to my estimation, this is like the perfect storyline in terms of like how this roster could have ended, at least in my estimation. Because you have like the most cocky players in the world, in my opinion, with Alfari. Perks has a right to be cocky, right? He's like European gold potentially, like him or Cabs. But they have Alfari, who is cocky every single year, and then he blames every single one of his teammates, every single one of his coaches after the year, and then he moves on to the next roster, has another roster change in his jungle, goes from self-made to Haru, which was actually an upgrade to my estimation, and then he shits the bed again. What can he even say at that point, right? What can he even say at that point? Like, this is just, you know, at least for my personal vindication, I feel vindicated, because I've been saying this about Alfari all these years, you know, that I don't think he's that good. And then he misses playoffs again, and it just doesn't look good, you know? It doesn't look good anymore.
I mean, what was outrageous to me about Vitality is that they did get themselves together, where it finally looked like their early game was starting to click, like they had some semblance of teamwork. And I guess credit to XL, because they kind of big-dicked Vitality in the draft. Like, I was watching that game in the watch party yesterday, and Crumbs and I were talking about it. And to me, it is crazy that XL would pick Draven, Thresh, and Twisted Fate, and like all in on that early game. And you know what? They fucking did it. Like, they just absolutely dismantled Vitality in the early game. You see Marcoon and Mickey X just pincering Perks in the mid lane and killing him immediately, putting him in really uncomfortable situations. They're winning the side lanes. They get the Draven super fed with this gold, and it's a complete disaster. Like, they said, okay, we are confident in dismantling Vitality in this early game. We can snowball this before it gets late. And they did it. I think it was a crazy gamble in this meta to do that in such a consequential game, but they apparently had a very good read on Vitality and thought they were still weak at that point in the game, and indeed they were.
I mean, it was really, really confusing to me how Perks even go cleanse in mid lane when he sees TF, Poppy on the enemy team, and Thresh. So he went with TP to kind of match the roams. Yep. He gets ganked level 2, even though Thresh was missing for, if I remember correctly, he was missing for a minute. He did not show for a minute.
Yeah.
And they could have anticipated it to any estimation, but no one was mid lane with him. He was alone in mid lane, gets ganked, flashed upon, dies, lose the early game, and they still make a lot of good plays in the early game where they actually come back, have an even standing, and then they drop the ball again where they suddenly overestimate their comp, don't really play together. Like, they have the Renata, they played literally more of a split kind of decision making.
They skirmished.
They skirmish continuously instead of just team fighting front to back with a flank coming in, like from Ken or Wukong. Someone like you cannot lose the team fights if you just play it front to back. And they still
the point where they truly lost was when they were skirmishing in the bot lane, where they allowed the fight to turn into like 2 or 3 separate like 2v2s and 1v1s. And you just can't do that versus Draven and TF. Like, you have to fight with the AoE that you have from your composition, because you will just lose all of those 1v1s. They were also fighting when Carzzy, I think, had purple and green guns in that skirmish too. So it was like even worse because Patrick was just 1v1ing him and just completely destroying him with those guns. So no, it's like purple and blue guns. I think it was purple and blue guns. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. The whole thing was terrible. It was like, Vitality, I expect you to understand if you pick this Wombo combo AoE ult comp, not to allow the fight to be breaking into all these skirmishes. And I understand what you're saying about the cleanse. Like, I had this conversation with Crumbs about that. The problem is, I think that if he had cleanse in that early situation, yeah, he lives, but he lives with like 1/3 HP, and then he doesn't have TP to get back into lane. So you have to question, like, how much does him dying actually matter in that circumstance? Can he later, is the TP going to be more valuable later on if you're confident you're going to outscale anyway? Does it matter that TF gets a kill? Not really, I would say. The real issue was that they just played very badly around the TF ults later on. Like, it was like they forgot TF was in the game half the time, and they were just they were pushing forward when TF had ult and Perkz was like walking back from base. It's like, don't fucking do that. Or Perkz was in the side lane and he was dying in these skirmishes. And so the TB never had any value because he would walk into the side lane. Then they just attack Perkz in the side lane. Doesn't matter if you have TP in that situation. So it was a really disappointing way for Vitality to lose, but also this is the Excel that I wanted to see. Excel had very clear win conditions. They had a very strong game plan heading into this. Nobody fucking plays Thresh right now. And for them to have the confidence in Mickey X to play that pick when, frankly, he's had a really bad few weeks, mate. Like, that's a bold call. That is a bold call to be like, hey, Mickey, I know you've kind of sucked for the last few weeks and are probably one of the biggest reasons we're losing. But what if we played an off-meta pick and then forced you to make plays on the map? You in on this? Like, it was risky, but I respect Excel for doing it.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.